Hi, welcome to Learning Made Easy with Shri. I have taken the topic functions and transformation, the most important points that you'll have to keep in mind for AS level in order to crack the exam. So basically I've taken few questions and I'm going to explain how it is being done. It is going to give you good amount of clarity in order to attend those questions with ease and get full marks. The first question is expressing f of x. There is an f of x which is given, expressing the function for, and the domain is given as x belongs to R. So x belongs to R in the sense x can have any one real number which belongs to the category minus infinity to positive infinity. So any real numbers includes negative, it includes negative roots and positive numbers, it also includes zeros, it also includes decimal points. And this is a very huge domain, and the function f of x is having the domain x belongs to real numbers, and it has to be expressed in the form of a into x minus b the whole square minus c. So let us have a look at the solution. So whenever you get a question when a function is being asked to be represented in some other form, then follow this. So whatever form they have given, expand that. So the first step is to expand the particular form. So when you are expanding it, you get and rearrange it so that you get x squared term in the beginning along with this coefficient, and then x term, and then the constant term. So it has to follow the order of x square, x and constant term. So this becomes easier for you to compare it with the given expression. So now we have 2x square minus 12x plus 7, which is f of x. Again it is arranged in x square, x and constant term. So similarly we are also going to make or bring the a into x minus b the whole square minus c, expand it and bring it to the x square, x and constant term format. So now when I am comparing these two expressions, expression 1 and 2, I will be getting a as 2. So a equals 2, and then 2ab equals 12, that is minus 2ab equals minus 12. So that means I can also get b, because since I have known a, if I substitute the value for a, I will be getting what is my b, which is equal to 3. And then the third expression for the constant term is ab square minus c is equal to 7. So I can also substitute the values of a and b and then solve for c. So always whenever you get any equation and they are asking you to express it in another form, you will have to expand that applying a minus b the whole square format, and then bring you will have to simplify in order to bring x squared term, x term, and then the constant term. Then by comparing the like terms, so when I say like terms, you will have to compare the coefficient of x squared term, comparing the coefficient of x term, and comparing the constant term. You get 3 different equations and hence solve the 3 constants which are unknown. So this is how you will be approaching this particular question. And the next set that can be asked is state the range of f of x. So whenever they are asking you to state the range of f, so range is nothing but the output. So you will have to think of domain as the input. So imagine that you are running a household. So probably if you are having a household appliances at home, so the process, imagine that you are going to operate the washing machine. The input timer or the input program that you set for it, or you put your clothes, you put the detergent, these are all the input that you need to put into the washing machine, and the process is washing, rinsing and drying, and then the output will be dried clothes, right? So this is how a process or IPO cycle, input process and output cycle, takes place in the household appliances, that is washing machine for this example. So similarly f of x is nothing but the process. So whatever you give as the input, this f of x will be processing it and it is going to give you the output. So the input is called as domain and the output is called as a range, and the process we are going to refer it as f of x function. So in this case, if your f of x will be the output, which is the range, and x is the input, right? So x is the input. So you vary the value for x, and for different values of x, you are going to get different values of f of x. So x will be your input and f of x will be your output. So now since we have a broader domain, that is, it is said in the question that x belongs to R. So x can be any real number. It can be a floating point value, it can be a positive value, it can be a negative value, it can be 0. So I just take it as 0 and I just substitute it in the equation and I just try to figure out the value for f of x. So I just get f of x is equal to 7, and then I take a positive value, then I get f of x as minus 11. So why I am taking 3? Because if I take 3, this particular value, that is 2 into 3 minus 3, so this gets nullified. So the whole term vanishes. There are two terms basically. I have expressed this as two terms, 2 into x minus 3 the whole square minus a constant term. So now the entire term, if I take x as 3, the entire term vanishes because 3 minus 3 is 0. So 2 into 0 is 0. Right? So 0 minus 11. So I get the lowest value, which is minus 11. So I will be able to find out the lowest value of the range. And since I have told you it can be any number, it goes from minus infinity to plus infinity. But I have just shown you, if I am going to substitute minus infinity and plus infinity, definitely I will be getting the range is in infinity. So this is only going to tell me that the highest value can be infinity. So now since we know the lowest value is minus 11, we can say the range is always determined by f of x. The input is always determined by x and the range is always determined, the output is always determined by f of x. So f of x, the lowest value is 11, so it can have the values which is greater than or equal to minus 11. So this is how you will have to approach all the problems. So given the function, if you just know what are the different types of input that you can give, the x values, so substitute for different x values in your f of x, in the expression of f of x, and then get the values of f of x in order to find out the lowest and the highest factor. So in this case, the highest factor is infinity. That means I can just leave it just like this, because greater than or equal to minus 11 states that minus 11 is the lowest value and the highest value can be infinity. Right? So this is how I will have to approach this particular question. And then we have next set of questions where they can ask you find the set of values of x for which f of x can be lesser than 21. So in this case, f of x value is lesser than 21. So I am just taking the expression. They have given the expression of f of x as 2x square minus 12x plus 7. So I am just going to make it as a quadratic equation. So once I get the quadratic equation, anyways it's in the quadratic equation, I'll have to just bring the constant term 21 to the other side, and it is easier for me to always have 0 on one of the sides, especially on the right hand side. So now I'll have to find out the two roots of this quadratic equation. Actually I'm simplifying it, I'm dividing by 2, I'm simplifying the entire equation and I'm just trying to find out the roots. So now I get the roots as x is equal to 7 and minus 1. But since the equality is not equal to 0, it is less than 0, I just fixate those 2 points on my x and y direction. So this is my x. So x value is ranging from positive 7 to negative 1 to positive 7. And since the inequality is lesser than, I am looking for the value which is between these points. So if it is lesser than 0, then I am looking for the values which are within these points. That means my x values that I am looking for should be greater than minus 1 and less than 7. Suppose if the inequality was greater than 0, instead of less than 0, if we have got greater than 0, then we will be looking for the points which are outside minus 1 and outside 7. So in that cases, the inequality would differ. So always whenever you are trying to solve these kind of problems, bring it to a quadratic equation term and find out those points. And after fixing those points or plotting those points in the diagram, in the 2D plane, then look for the inequality. If the inequality is lesser than, that means we are looking within those 2 points. Our x value can be anything within these 2 points. If it is greater than, then the x values are beyond that point, so that is lesser than minus 1 and greater than 7. So this inequality plays an important role in order to arrive at a conclusion or an expression like this. Okay, and then we can see the next set of question is basically find the value of the constant k for which the equation g of f of x is equal to 0 has two equal roots. So there are two roots which are equal. So basically they have asked a composite function. So they have given g of x as 2x plus k, and they've also given the domain of that, which is nothing but x belongs to R. So this is a composite function. So now how do we form a composite function? So g is the outer function and f of x is the inner function. So whenever you are applying a composite function, we will have to apply whatever is there in the value of the expression for f of x. This is your inner function, right? So the expression for f of x is taking the place of x in your outer function. So instead of x here, I am going to write the expression for f of x. So that's how I got. So g of x, when it was g of x, it was 2x plus k. But when it was g of f of x, that means in place of x, I'll have to write whatever is there for f of x. So f of x is given as this particular expression. So I'm writing the entire expression in place of x. So how many ever times I have x in my expression? So luckily here in this case I just have only once. So it is enough if I apply it only once. If there are number of other terms where it has x value, then I'll have to write it as many times x appears in the expression. So now after substituting, I'll have to equate it to 0 because that is given in the question. Now I simplify it and bring it to a quadratic expression. Once I bring it to a quadratic expression, I just note down the value of a, the coefficient of x square as a, and the coefficient of x as b, and the independent term which is independent of x as a constant term. I take it as c. So I take a, b, c depending upon the coefficient of x square, x, and the constant term. So I'll have to include the sign also whenever I'm calculating. So now, going back to the question, I have g of f of x is equal to 0 and it has two equal roots. This is what is asked in the question. Now I am just solving the question. So I just apply in order to have two equal roots. So that means both the roots are equal. It has two roots and both the roots are equal. So if it has to be equal roots, that means it is having one real root. So that means b square minus 4ac equals 0. So whatever is the value for b, a and c, if I am going to substitute it there, I will be able to find out or get a linear expression in terms of k, and I will find out the value of k. So I am going to apply all these in order to find out the constant. So whenever they are asking you about the roots and they are giving you an expression, they are giving you a constant, then we will have to apply this b square minus 4ac term in order to get it. In case if they have given it is having two distinct roots instead of equal roots, if it was two distinct roots, distinct in the sense there are two different roots, then we will have to we should not equate this to 0. Instead we should have b square minus 4ac greater than 0. So we will have to apply for something which is greater than, that is the inequality greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, then the inequality of k will also differ. K value would, the inequality would not be equal to, it would differ, right? And suppose it was no real roots, then we will have to have a condition where it is b square minus 4ac is less than 0 and solve for that particular inequality. So this sign has to be taken care of whenever you are whenever you are trying to solve the question. And read the question carefully based on the number of roots, and this is the keyword, equal to or distinct is the keyword based on which you can apply whether it is equal to or greater than 0. Then the next question can be basically of composite function. The next point which you will have to remember. So composite function will exist only if the range of inner function is contained within the domain of outer function. So as I told you, g of f of x. So in this, f of x is the inner function and g is the outer function. So that means the range of f of x should be contained within or should be the subset of the domain of g of x. So only then the composite function can exist. G of f of x exists, that doesn't mean that f of g of x also should exist, because again in that case if you are inversing the outer function and the inner function, that means your domain of the inner function has to be contained within the range of the inner function has to be contained within the domain of the outer function. Only then the composite function for that case or f of g of x will exist. So we will have to check that in order to proceed further for composite functions. An inverse function will also exist only for a one-on-one function. So what is meant by one-on-one? So for imagine there are two sets, set A and set B. So for each and every value of set A, you have a value in set B. So but you have only one value. You don't have many values, you just have one value. So for every value of set A, there is a value, a distinct value in set B. So only when you have such a kind of relationship between two sets, then we call it as one-on-one. So you have one here for one value, you have one value on the other side. And inverse functions will exist only for such one-on-one functions. Then the most important topic in this is going to be transformations. So they have given a curve equation. Curve equation is given as y is equal to x square plus 6x plus 8. And sketch the curve showing the coordinates of any axis crossing points. So I have sketched it for you. So I have just drawn a 2D plane x and y plane. So how do I sketch it? How do I know? So basically, if I'm going to substitute when my x values are 0, so if I'm in this equation, if I'm going to substitute x as 0, I'll be getting the y-intercept, which is 8. So that's how I got when I'm substituting x as 0. So for x value which is 0, I have got the y-intercept as 8. So that means it is going to cross my y-axis at point 8 when my x is 0. And how do I get the points when it's going to cross the x-axis? If I have to substitute y value as 0, then I'll have to equate this quadratic equation x square plus 6x plus 8 is equal to 0. Since it's a quadratic equation, there will be two roots, 2 points where it is crossing, and I have found that 2 points as -2 and -4. And after finding those points, I just draw a parabola. I'll have to join these points, and since the parabola is going to be symmetric around its midpoint, so hence I'll have to extend this on the other side also. So this is how I'm going to sketch any diagram. And keep in mind whenever you're sketching how to find the y-intercept, keeping on x-axis, because if it's going to cross the y-axis, that means x is equal to 0. If it's going to cross the x-axis, that means your on x-axis y is equal to 0, and on y-axis your x is equal to 0. So you should always keep that in mind before solving your answers, and hence after finding the points, you'll have to just plot those points and sketch them. And this is a proper transformation question where they have given the curve, the particular curve which they have given is translated by a vector of 2, 0, and then there is a stretch which is a vertical stretch by a factor of 3. We'll have to represent the equation in terms of ax square plus bx form. So this is the form that they have also specified. So I'm just taking the first transformation is translation. Always you will have to keep in mind that the keywords, there are only 3 types of transformation that is in the scope of syllabus: translation, stretch and reflection. So basically for all types of transformation you have to mention the keywords, the names of the transformation, and then the vectors or a factor depending upon the transformation. So in this case it is translation by a vector of 2, 0. So that means in the x value it is 2 and on the y-axis it is 0. So what I'm going to do is, and this is nothing but the value, the function is x square plus 6x plus 8. So on this function the translation of 2, 0 has happened. So in place of x, I am going to write it as x minus 2. So wherever x appears, I am going to write it as x minus 2. As it was x square plus 6x plus 8, I am going to write it as x minus 2 the whole square plus 6 into x minus 2 plus 8. And then on simplifying all these equations, I will be getting the new y as x square plus 2x. And now the second point is there is a stretch, and that too is a vertical stretch by a factor of 3. So since it's a vertical stretch by a factor of 3, y becomes 3 times y. So 3 times x square plus 2x, so that means it becomes 3x square plus 6x. So this is the answer which is written in box with this is the answer. This is the new equation that we have got after applying all the transformations. So whenever you are solving these transformation questions, you will have to keep the below points that I am going to discuss in mind. So the translation can appear both on your x-axis and y-axis. So it is like by a vector of, so whenever you are specifying in the matrix format, the first one which is always specified is for the x, and the second one which is specified is always for the y. So the x ones, imagine this is the equation of the parabola. So the equation of the parabola is given as y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c. So your x becomes x minus a1. So initially I had taken as a and b, but since I have also given the general formula for parabola, I wanted you to or the curve, I wanted you to take the points or the vectors as a1 and b1. So the vectors x becomes x minus a1, and your b1 is finally added as a constant to the existing y. That means your new y becomes, so here whatever constant terms or coefficient you have, you are going to retain the coefficient. So a, b, c are the a and b are the coefficient of like x square and x, and c is a constant term. Similarly, your a1 and b1 are the vectors of translation. So now I have a times x minus a1 the whole square. So in place of x, I am going to write it as x minus a1. Similarly, in place of x for b also, I am going to write it as x minus a1, and I am going to add the constant term b1 here. So whenever you take the vector for x-axis, you are going to flip the sign and write it along with x. Whenever you are going to add this, you are going to add it finally to your final equation. So you are not going to do anything with respect to x here for b1. So b1 is a vector which has to be added to y, so you add it as a constant term finally. So this is something which you will have to keep in mind for all translation parts. And whenever any one of the vectors is 0, you are not going to do that part. So x minus 0 is nothing but same as writing the expression, keeping it as such. Right? If b1 is 0, then you are not going to add this particular constant term. If both are 0, that means no translation has happened. Then the next type of transformation that we are going to see is stretch. So again, stretch can happen both vertically as well as horizontally. So if it's going to be a vertical stretch by a factor of m, on the curve y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c. So if it is vertical stretch, you are just going to multiply m to the entire expression. So it becomes m times ax square plus m times bx plus m times c. So m is going to be multiplied with each and every term of your expression or your curve equation. So remember this only for a vertical stretch. But if it is going to be a horizontal stretch which can happen horizontally also, if it's going to be a horizontal stretch by a factor of m, that means your curve equation y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c, this is going to be divided by m. So you want to divide the entire equation by m. So that results in a by m x square plus b by m x plus c by m. Or you can also write it as ax square plus bx plus c the whole divided by m, since we are having a common LCM of m. So you should remember this. For horizontal, you are going to take the reciprocal of it, and for vertical, you are going to take the value as such and multiply it. And the third type of transformation that is in the scope of syllabus is reflection. So reflection can happen in the x-axis or in the y-axis. So if it happens in the x-axis, that means you are going to replace the entire expression and flip the sign of it. So imagine your reflection of this curve. So your x-axis will become the mirror. So whenever your x-axis becomes the mirror, that means the value which was down before, it moves to the top. So the value of y which was positive before, it would have become negative now. So so x-axis will be your mirror. So that means your value which was positive, it would have become negative. The points would be same, but it would be on the other side. If the reflection was in the y-axis, that means your y-axis is going to be the mirror. So that means your y values, there is a shift in your x values. So if you just imagine this is your x, right? So there is a shift in your x value. So your x would have become minus x. So in place of x, you are going to replace it as minus x. and then see, you're going to simplify the equation and you'll be getting this. So you'll have to remember these two very important, and the diagram is going to give you clarity. So if you're having reflection on the x-axis, that means your x-axis is going to be the mirror. So whenever x-axis is your mirror, there's a flip in your y values, right? Your x values remain constant, flip in your y values. That means y has become minus y. If it was y previously, it becomes minus. So you flip the sign for all the terms. Whereas if the reflection happens in your y-axis, that means your x values are taking a change and y is the mirror, and your y values are constant. For every y value, your x values are the ones which are changing. So that means you're going to flip your x values, the sign of the x values, as minus x. In place of x, you are going to write as minus x. So minus x the whole square, it becomes x square only, right? Whenever negative value is inside your square, then it is going to become, and you're squaring the negative value, it again becomes positive. So that is how there is a change of sign. So this is very important, and when you're keeping this diagram in your mind, you will be able to do it well. So that's with respect to functions and transformations. I hope you have got it. In case if you want me to solve more problems and take some question paper and solve it, please do comment. And if you like my teaching, share and subscribe. Thank you.